Listeners, have you ever wondered how a single moment, a glance, a mistake, a shimmering flash of memory can hold the power of an entire story? Or how the smallest details of an ordinary life can reveal something vast about who we are and what we long for? In this episode, I talk with award winning author Sue William Silverman about her newest book, Selected Misdemeanors Essays at the Mercy of the Reader. Together, we explore the art of flash nonfiction, those short, revelatory pieces that illuminate our obsessions and turn ordinary moments into profound reflections on love, loss, and self forgiveness. Plus, you won't want to miss what Sue has to say about surviving 2025 and the role of artists. Let's dive in. Welcome to Writing Resilience, the podcast for writers who want to write and live the story that sets them free. I'm your host, Lisa Cooper Ellison, a writer, transformational and trauma-informed coach, story alchemist, and fellow traveler on the winding road of healing and creativity. Each week, I'll share tools, practices, and conversations that will help you let go of what no longer serves you as you create stories that change lives, especially your own. Together, we'll explore how to trust your creative voice, support your mental health and resilience, work with your nervous system and unique design, and stay connected to your deepest calling as a writer, even when life gets messy. It's time, my friends, to write and live the story that sets you free. I'm honored to walk that journey alongside you, one story and one episode at a time. Well, hello, Sue. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy to have you on, and it's so wonderful to see you again.
Thank you so much. Really, it's such a delight for me. I loved talking to you last time, and this is just great. So thank you.
Well, I'm really excited that we get to dive into yet another of your books. So, for those who did not listen last time, maybe you're a new listener, I'm just going to hold up for those on YouTube the copy of your first book that we talked about, Acetylene Torch Songs, which is not your first book, but it's the first one I interviewed you for. And then now we're going to talk about Selected Misdemeanors, which is your new book. And I definitely want to start with the title. But before we get to that, what would you like us to know about the book and about just you in general if people are new to you and your writing?
Thank you. Yes. So I mainly write creative nonfiction. I've written some poetry. And I started out writing two full length memoirs, with a straight through narrative. And then I've written two essay collections, with long personal essays in them. And then this new book is a collection of flash pieces. So I'd never written flash before. So that was one thing I wanted to challenge myself with. And then I also teach creative nonfiction at Vermont College of Fine Arts, which is a low residency MFA in writing program. So basically, that's my life. I write and I teach. And I finally did get a hobby. I do some horseback riding, but very slow horseback riding. So that's pretty much my life.
I love that you are horseback riding. I have only done it once and it was pretty fun. Also, I was up so high. And I have a friend who is an avid horse rider. She's actually in competitions, and my dad did it once. And he started riding horses when he was older. And he was like, there is so much to learn and so much to do with trusting the horse.
Yes, and the horse has to trust you, but we just plod along. So I should say I don't ride, I sort of plod along with the horse.
I think that's about what I did the one time I was on the horse, and it's probably all I would do as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice segue into your book because when I think about horseback riding, I think about that one specific moment. And this is a book of singular moments that immerse us into your life. And so we're going to talk about a few of those today, but I want to start with the title. So, how did you come up with it? And I know what it means in my head and how I've been thinking about it, but what does it mean to you? Selected Misdemeanors. And I'm going to read the whole title along with the subtitle. So, Selected Misdemeanors Essays at the Mercy of the Reader.
Right. So, first of all, I should say that this is not the original title. I mean, I worked on the book for maybe 4 years. It went through maybe, I don't know, 5 kind of different titles. Finally, I ended up with them. So, there are 71 essays in the book, and I mean for the book to be ironic. And so the title selected misdemeanors. First of all, reader might say, "Well, these are the selected ones. How many other misdemeanors are there?" Which sort of is could get a reader thinking about it. But also, it's ironic because the misdemeanors are not literal. Like, I should hasten to say that I've never served jail time, and they're not crimes in the legal sense, but they are emotional misdemeanors. And so that title, after I'd gone through, as I say, about 4 other titles or so, this just kind of kept rising to the surface because, the emotional misdemeanors, really, they're sort of transgressions, miscalculations of love, internal and external sort of betrayals. Kind of focusing on the word to describe them as misdemeanors is sort of a new way of looking at something like that. Just the emotions that we go, like, really, the misdemeanors are some against other people, but also mainly against myself. If I use something like betrayal, that sounds so, I don't know, rigid and kind of not ironic. So I just wanted to sort of the title to reflect the tone of the book, which is pretty much ironic.
I love that. And when I was thinking about the misdemeanors, you talk about that they are these misdemeanors in relationships and things that perhaps you have perpetrated against others, against yourself. But I also felt like some of these misdemeanors were things that other people perpetrated against you.
Well, yes, absolutely. That is true. I mean, I certainly claim everything that I've done wrong in my life. But yes, people did betray me, mainly some men, my father, for one. Growing up, he misloved me. And like one misdemeanor that I write about is so when I went away to college, I was a freshman in college, and I immediately had an affair with this man who was old enough to be my father and who was married.
Mm.
And obviously, I had some role in that. I could have said no theoretically, except that's what my father had sort of taught me that you don't say
Right.
no to men, as particularly like these older men, but he certainly took advantage of me as well. So it's just sort of looking at this whole idea of misdemeanors in a kind of a broad sense of the word, except that, as I say, I've never been to jail.
I love that last part. When I was thinking about this book, in addition to thinking about it in terms of those crimes or infractions, we'll say, against self, against others, there's also this really unique construction that you have within your book because you have these flash essays, the 71 essays that you crafted. You also have these faux postcards that you inserted in the book. And then you have these photos of yourself. And alongside each photo, we have misdemeanor, right? 2 words. And so I'm going to read one of those. This is from page 119. Misdemeanor considers the time she stood under the boardwalk at the New Jersey shore, a location so distant from love that the pillar was all that held her up in the face of the oncoming storm. Jacket, black leather, girl, waiting for trouble, smile, knowing. And then when I look at this photo, there's this carving, love is here every day. And so I'm going to hold this up. So if someone has not yet seen the book or purchased the book, which you should definitely do right now, that's the photo. Tell us what you were trying to do by playing on, the words in your title and also inserting these photographs.
Sure. So initially, this is kind of interesting. I had the photographs pretty much from the beginning. But the persona, misdemeanor, initially, I was just calling her the girl, like the girl did this. And then I realized that's so sort of abstract. And I wanted to sort of come up with something that was more specific. And then it's just like misdemeanor. It's just like so obvious. It was just staring at me. So it is like Miss, MISS. And then like her name is demeanor. So it's misdemeanor. The photographs or I really call them essay photos because the essay part doesn't refer to any other essay in the book. It just has to do with the photograph. And so that long part that you read at the beginning, that's like the title of the essay. So think of it, there's the title of the essay, and then there's the photograph, and then those 3 really short lines at the end are sort of like the text of the essay itself. And I think I have about 13 of those in the book. And they're meant kind of for two things. One, they're sort of a unifying device because by sprinkling them throughout the book, we keep coming back to misdemeanor, misdemeanor, 13 times. So they do work as a unifying device. And then it's just another way of looking at these misdemeanors from a visual perspective, not so much a word perspective. So it's just a different way of kind of approaching the material that I'd never done before. And just like I, mentioned, I'd never written, maybe I'd written one or two flash essays, but I really didn't understand the form that well. And so, as much as we want to grow as writers, I'd written, memoir, essay collections. I really wanted to evolve, for my writing to evolve and try something new. So I came up with this idea of trying to see if I could sort of sustain a book length collection of flash essays. Like, could I do that? It was a challenge, but it was also fun. I really liked it. So, and then there are different ways of sort of doing it. I also have like these postcards that I think there may be 6 of those sprinkled throughout. So again, another unifying device, another way to see for the persona, this narrator, to kind of envision these events in her life. So it's just a different way of looking at narrative, really. Like you can look at narrative through a photograph, you can look at narrative through, sort of a fake postcard.
Yeah, and it creates this additional layer of poetry to what you've created. And then also for me as the reader, I felt more connected to the narrator because I had these visuals, and it was this reminder that yes, this is a person with agency who maybe made decisions that are not decisions she wishes she had made, right? But she was so young, and we really see the innocence. We see this other side, and I felt like that just added this layer of richness to what you were exploring within this in the flash form. And you've mentioned several times, I've never done flash before. I've never attempted something like this. And yet I feel like I don't know if it's in the zeitgeist, but it's a popular form now.
It
People are
is.
talking about a lot. And yet I feel like we don't always know what it is. So could you tell us what you see the flash form being, and how did you approach it as you were writing this book?
Sure. So for me, my sort of definition of a flash essay, the narrative is short, but it's revelatory. So it's kind of an intense and focused look at what it means to be human. Like, how do we gain insight into our lives in sort of these flashes of time? I kind of like to think of them as quick, shimmering epiphanies. And what I mean by that, okay, again, so the outer form, the shell of it is small, but it still has to be meaningful. It's not gonna be just like an anecdote, like, "This happened to me." I mean, that's not literary. So you sort of crack open the form, and inside you will find metaphors, which universally would resonate with the reader. So how I approached each one, so I'm a very obsessive person, which is good if you're a writer because writers like to write about their obsessions. Each flash essay, to some extent, is one of my obsessions. They may be sort of on the same theme, but it's a different approach to the obsession. What's my obsession? That's sort of step one. And then step two is like, what kind of imagery would reflect that obsession? And I could give an example. So on the cover of the book, there's a goldfish in the corner there, but the goldfish is belly up. And this goldfish does appear in one of the essays. So in this essay, my boyfriend, who doesn't really love me that much, but he sort of strings me along, he has to go away to boot camp. So he's in the military. So I do two things. One is that I buy a goldfish for company. And secondly, one of my misdemeanors is that I have an affair with his roommate. So during the course of this short essay, the roommate breaks up with me. And I'm so distraught about that that I forget to feed my goldfish and it dies. So that's another misdemeanor. So we have two misdemeanors there, affair with the roommate, and that I let this poor little goldfish die. But if I were just to say it to you like I just did now, that is just sort of an anecdote. And, as a friend, you might say, oh, that, whatever. But the way I describe the goldfish in the essay is that the goldfish becomes a metaphor. And it's a metaphor because it dies It's a metaphor for loss. It's a metaphor for betrayal because I betrayed the goldfish. So the way I describe this goldfish, he becomes a metaphor. And that's important because let's say that a reader has not had that same experience that I've had, didn't have a boyfriend at boot camp, didn't have an affair with a roommate, didn't have a goldfish. Okay, so you can read that and be interested, but what does it mean? So by making this goldfish into a metaphor, most people at some point in their lives have experienced a sense of loss, loss of love or some kind of a death or something. So by making that goldfish metaphorical, which is to say universal, then that's how the reader can then enter into the narrative. So that's how I see Flash. Small outside form, but inside it has to be vast. And the way you make it vast is through metaphor.
I love that. And when you talk about obsession, what I think about is being haunted by something, right? And when you do this well in the flash form or really any form, the reader is haunted by the experience and you chew on it after it ends. And I found myself doing that with that specific piece because, yeah, that goldfish, I was like, oh. And also, I had some goldfish in my life that I tried and was not successful in keeping alive. And so I think, yeah, having something that serves that meaning, that deepens the experience. And when you talk about having that vast inside of the small shell, it's interesting because I think that when we think about that vastness, my initial thought is, oh, zoom out. But really, what works well in the flash form, and it's what you do so successfully in this book, is you zoom in to those very specific details. So it's the specificity coinciding with a metaphor that makes this so powerful and makes us connect it not just to, your life, right? But also to our own lives. And I think another thing that I'm thinking about, which relates to your other book in our last interview, is the concept of reportage versus story, right? So the anecdote is really a reportage of what happened. And so your job as the writer is, that's where we all start, right? We have to get it all down, but then
Exactly.
to deepen it by really saying, like, okay, what is the meaning behind this? How did this impact me? And a piece, and I didn't tell you about this in advance, but I was looking through the different essays. I love the construction of it. And the poetry is the soft beauty of an ordinary life. And I'm just going to read the first couple of paragraphs. The first was, before his wife catches you, one spring evening in Georgia, you slide onto the passenger seat of Rick's Jeep Cherokee outside of Big Lots. You secretly meet here, Thursdays, in this anonymous location, to head north into the foothills of the Appalachians. At dusk, the lights of this box store appear like an oasis across the vast cement stretch of parking lot, across the endless boredom of the week since the last time you were together.
Another misdemeanor.
Yeah. Can we talk about that essay for a moment and how you
Absolutely.
constructed it? Because, number one, listeners, when you buy the book, this is on page 115. So I want you to go to it because the construction's so interesting. You have this before and after, and there's this really nice weaving. Like you could have told this story front to back, and we would make one sense of it. But the fact that you braid the first half of the story with the second half of the story creates a different meaning, and it gave me a different sense of what you were trying to accomplish. So you tell us what you wanted to do with this.
Well, ironically, pretty much what you just said, so which is that, just to sort of write about an affair kind of straight on, it's sort of boring. I just wanted to look at it different. And so each of them begins with sort of a half line, each paragraph. Like there's before his wife catches you. And then there's the paragraph that you just read. And then there's another line after his wife catches you, before his wife catches you. And so each of those little sentences sort of sets up the paragraph. And then it goes down after you and here, caught, sort of what happens. And then the last one is what remains after you catch yourself. So it does move around in time, but yet with those little mini lines, those were sort of meant to kind of hold the whole together. Basically, the narrator is kind of reflecting in some ways on what had happened in the past with this affair. And so she sees it in a deeper light. She's able to reflect on what happened. So, like at the time that it happened, I didn't have any of these thoughts. It was just like, okay, here it is Thursday again. I'm going to, drive out in the Appalachians and have, sex with this Rick. And then this one night, his wife catches us. But in the moment that it happens, it's just like, you're sort of numb. It's sort of like, oh my God, what just happened? And you're so stunned by it that basically my brain was probably sort of blank. But then entered the writing process, which is, what I do. And that's the time when the adult author narrator can make sense of what happened in the past. So that's what I'm trying to do is like, I had remembered, of course, that this had happened, but I didn't really understand what it meant or even really fully understand how I felt because I was just so checked out at the time. Just, something really big happens and you're sort of freaked out and your brain sort of goes blank. So this was an opportunity because this moment did obsess me. It is one of my obsessions. So the writer me now, who I am now in the present, is able to go back and through that sensory imagery and through reflection and metaphor, I'm able to really sort of dig down deep inside what happened that one night and try to make sense of it. And how like that box store, sort of the alienation of, these stores and these gigantic parking lots, and it's also anonymous, which is how in many ways I felt at the time because I was so lost, So that box store itself, it also represents those sort of the ordinary family. I mean, families go shopping at these box
Yeah.
stores. I'm not with my family shopping. I'm encountering one of my misdemeanors. So it works as a metaphor for two things, both the alienation of these vast parking lots and just those stores with the fluorescent lights, and they are sort of alienating, but they're also a place that attracts families. So that part of the setting, it sort of begins and ends with that box store. It also works as a metaphor then for the alienation of the narrator.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and read that final paragraph. What remains after you catch yourself? You sit in your Ford Escort watching cars pull in and out of the parking lot. No one would find you here among shoppers carrying plastic bags containing towels, shoes, coffee mugs, laundry detergent, toothpaste, t-shirts, baby food, shampoo, tangible things that compose a home, a family, the soft beauty of an ordinary life, one you don't yet know how to live. What's interesting about how you land here and that the use of the metaphor is that if you had set this up kind of just as a straightforward chronological arc, the sense we make of that big box store might have been different because you would have landed on the shock and the shame. And that tells a completely different story. So, listeners, when you're thinking about metaphors and thinking about these sense of arcs, you want to think about what is the feeling you want to leave the reader with, and then what artistically are you trying to accomplish?
Exactly. And we do that through these details. I mean, like if I just said, oh, I felt shame, I felt betrayed, those are abstract words. A reader cannot connect with an abstraction. And that's
Yes.
why you want to dig into these small details like the goldfish in the other essays, or here, like listing things that the box store sells are very tangible things that anybody could identify with. And they're meant to show that's not what the narrator is doing. She's not leading kind of an ordinary life. She's not shopping there with her husband. She's in this parking lot, abandoned, alone. So by having that setting of sitting in her car by herself in this vast parking lot and the other families, it can show, as I say, both the alienation of the narrator without saying, oh, I felt alienated, because nobody's going to know what that feels like. But it shows the alienation and that she has committed this misdemeanor, which prevents her from living this ordinary life, which really speaks to the sort of the theme of the whole book, because the sort of the overriding theme of the whole collection is the fact that the narrator is searching for a sense of home and comfort and safety, all of those things. That's what she yearns for. But at the same time, she commits these emotional misdemeanors that sabotage her attempt to find that home. So you have these two sort of warring forces. On the one hand, I want a home, I want comfort, I want safety. And then I'm committing these emotional misdemeanors that sabotage everything that she really feels like she wants, what she's struggling to get. So that's the overall arc of the book. And as you journey through it, well, at the end, it's not like it's tied up in a neat bow, but the narrator does get more of a sense of herself so that she maybe doesn't have to keep committing these misdemeanors.
I loved that about it, how it was this exploration of the ways that we sabotage ourselves. And oh my gosh, there are so many times like that is so universal because, how many people have not sabotaged the one thing that they really want? We do it all the time.
I know. It's like, "What am I
Yeah, I
doing?"
know. It's like, did I really want that? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something that you said that I think is really important, and that is the concept of abstraction. And as it relates to metaphor and metaphorical and figurative language, because I agree with you 100%. Readers cannot understand abstraction. And that's the thing that's so problematic about feelings. And when you're saying, I felt this, I felt that, well, what does that really mean? Or if someone's, say, gentle or kind, well, what does that really look like? Because it is in the eye of the beholder. And so this is a really poetically written book. I mean, you use that language so well. And yet, what I found, and I have to watch for it in my own writing because, I'll write something and someone will say, that's beautiful, but I have no idea what you mean. How are you balancing this idea of finding these overarching metaphors, using that metaphorical and figurative language, but also being clear so that we're not asking ourselves these questions like, it's beautiful, but what is that?
Well, sort of the flip, really easy answer is like, I'll just say revision, but also to reassure people, it's not like I get that right off the bat. So let's go back to the goldfish for a minute. So I don't know, maybe I revise this 10 times, maybe 20 times, a lot. So for a while, a long time, the goldfish was just a goldfish. It was sort of like swimming around in its bowl and it died. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, we have a goldfish. It's belly up. I have to really explore it. So what I do is I kind of do an inventory of as many senses as I can. Like, what does something smell like, feel like, look like, taste like, kind of like that. By doing that, you're going to make things more understandable so that these images, like the goldfish or that box store, become very tangible. So they can be poetically conveyed without losing their tangibility. Like the goldfish is still a goldfish and the box store is still a box store, but I can describe them in such a way like the cat's tail is got to be a metaphor for something. We'll figure that out later.
I know.
Comfort, safety, that big furry tail. But it's really a matter of not losing the focus of your tangible image. It's really keeping that front and center. So the goldfish is always here. And then how I describe it using different sensory details kind of flows out from the thing itself. It's a matter of grounding the reader. So the reader's always going to be grounded in that goldfish as metaphor or that box store as metaphor. So you just don't want to get too far away from like the tangible thing itself.
And so, listeners, if you're listening, you cannot see my adorable cat, Miss Foxy, who totally agrees that specificity is so important and not losing sight of that tangible. And as you were talking, I was thinking about something that I do when I'm thinking about this is it's almost like an improvisational exercise is I riff on something. So, and what happens is, a draft will balloon up and it will become really big. And then of course, then the next part is like, what do we cut out? And we cut ruthlessly. But I think what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I'll have this image or I'll have this thing. How many different ways can I describe it? And I'll allow myself to keep describing and keep describing, getting into those sensory details, all of these different ways of coming at something in order to find the right way to come at it.
Exactly, and that is something that, like, if you don't get it right off the bat, like, don't panic, it'll come, and just know that we really can't know what our metaphors are before we start writing, and we
No.
can't even know them the first or probably second draft because we're digging deeper and deeper into a moment in time, and, you can't rush it. So just be patient, sit with it, and eventually the metaphor sort of it reveals itself. I mean, that's really what it is. And just know, just be patient. You're not going to get it right away. And you're certainly not going to know it before you start writing. I mean, that's why we write is to discover what something means, both through reflection and metaphor. If I just think, oh, I think I'll write about this and this is what I'm going to discover about it, well, that's never going to happen. I mean, it just is not going to happen because you have to sort of trust your words and trust the process and just let the words sort of lead you. To me, I think about it as sort of following a whisper. So you just keep following that whisper like deeper and deeper inside the moment in hand.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm going to be writing it on my wall. Trust the whisper. That is such a great piece of advice because we do have to trust the whisper and trust the process. And what I'll say for myself is that I will feel it in my body when it's right.
Yes.
And you have to be patient.
Yeah, it's like your pulse actually changed. It's like
Yes.
yeah, I know. It's like, "Oh my god, I think I've got it now." And then that's such a good feeling, but even once I feel like, "Okay, I got it," I'm still gonna revise it because it's a matter of refining it then after
Yes.
that.
I love that you talk about how many times you revise a piece. I'm like that too. I'm revising until infinity because I really want to get something right. And I think we live in a world where, I mean, social media, so many things are training us to desire instant gratification and quick results. And then, of course, you'll see, if you're on social media, like the 5 things you can do right now. And if you do these steps, you're going to be guaranteed this kind of success, which we both know is not true. And so we become impatient with the process. And I think oh my gosh, if you hear the news and just living in 2025, it can make you feel so hopeless about the outcome, like what's going to happen. I think that also makes the process feel, I don't know, sketchier, harder to trust. Is it worth it? And you have obviously been publishing books for a good long while. You've had a lot of success. You are very respected in our field. When I say your name, people immediately perk up and they are excited to
Thank you.
know about these conversations. That's definitely happens. What advice do you have for writers who are, number one, just trying to navigate the onslaught of 2025, and two, doing it as writers?
When things are tough and times are dark or scary, that is the time when you most need to write. Art is what saves us. At the end of the day, what do we have left after all the wars, after all the politicians, all of the things that just seem completely out of whack? What remains solid is art. And I mean, you just think of what survived over the centuries. I mean, we're still reading Greek tragedies. We're looking at ancient Greek tragedies, ancient Greek sculpture. I mean, art lasts. And, like during COVID, there were a lot of posts on Facebook. Oh, we're in the middle of this terrible pandemic. Who would care about my story about, something else? Well, everybody would. If you have a COVID story, fine, you can write it. But I actually started writing selected misdemeanors that has nothing to do with COVID during the lockdown. I needed, something to do. I just believe, I mean, to the core of myself, I just believe that that is the most important thing that an artist can do anytime, but particularly during tough times, is just keep writing. The personal narrative, that's how we connect with each other. So during times of stress or anxiety, if you have a book out there with your own personal narrative, somebody reads it, they'll feel connected to you. And then there's that human connection, which makes us feel not so all alone when one could theoretically feel very alone, not just during the pandemic, but during, these times that are very stressful right now. But if we have that human connection, that's what we hold on to. So write your stories. This is like the most important time to write is when things look really the grimmest.
And to trust in the power of that work to transform you, to transform others. And it doesn't matter how big your audience is. Those human connections, those human transformations are the reason why we do this, because you never know what that ripple effect is going to be.
You really don't. I mean, writing has transformed me as a person and, and I get a lot of emails from people who've read my work and, they thank me sort of like for telling their story too, or just saying that that exact thing didn't happen to me, but I really relate to the emotions and what you're struggling with. I mean, these connections are they just make you feel not so alone. So they're transformative to writers and to the readers. They're so important. They really are. We were talking about flash before, like, what does it mean? And I sort of think of it like these small moments of beauty or miniature moments of betrayal or snippets of loss. And sort of like who can't relate to something like that? I mean, that's what flash is. It's just these moments in time. When you think about it, in some ways, when I started writing, and many writers, I think, oh, this big thing that happened to me, like I struggled with addiction for all these years. So that's a big topic. And I wrote about that. But when you think about it, all those thousands and thousands and thousands of smaller moments, they're really what make up life. Are these just sort of these tiny moments of time that happen between or among these larger moments of time. So when you think about Flash and sort of zero in on these miniature moments that really do make up, for the most part, a life, it's kind of like, don't forget those. They're important too.
Yes.
So, like, if you feel like you don't have a big story, that's okay. Write about these sort of smaller things, but dig into them because you will find the significance of them.
I love that. Write about the smaller things and dig into the significance because it's that significance that connects us with our own humanity and it allows us to see the beauty and the magnificence of our lives and all lives,
Yeah.
right? Because not everybody has like some huge tragedy that has happened to them or a huge tragedy, train that to fall upon. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And so, how can we find the humanity in everything and that beauty? And I think that is such a wonderful note for us to end on today. Though I have something I'm going to ask you about after we end the recording. So, there may be a to be continued, listeners. So, be on the lookout for that. And for now, if people want to get your book, Selected Misdemeanors, what is the best way for them to get your book? And also, you're on book tour, you're doing all kinds of things. How can people connect with you and learn what you are up to?
So most of my events are posted on Facebook, Sue William Silverman, and my website is SueWilliamSilverman.com, so just my whole name.com. The book is available pretty much wherever books are sold, Amazon, bookshop.org. If you have a great local indie bookstore, if they don't happen to have it, they'll order it for you. So it's pretty much wherever books are sold. Yeah, and so follow me. I have my events listed on my website, but also on Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram, also at Sue William Silverman. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And also be sure to order this from the library. That makes sure that someone who can't get access to it has a chance to read it. And thank
Yes.
you so much for being on the show today. It has been so wonderful to spend time with you, Sue.
Thank you for having me. I just love talking to you.
Me too. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Sue or buy a copy of Selected Misdemeanors, Acetylene Torch Songs, or any of her other books, please see the show notes for this episode. But before you go, I would love it if you would text the show if you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or leave a comment on YouTube letting us know how you are surviving 2025 and which artists are inspiring you. I would love to hear what you're up to, and I'd love to know what tricks and tips you are using to help you deal with this year. Also, speaking of your feedback on the podcast, I'd like to give a special shout out to Stephanie Shaffrin, Muana, Renee Hills, and Jen Hickel for your recent comments and support of my episodes with Arini Carson, Lily Danziger, and my editor's roundtable conversation with Lynn Shattuck and Kristen Sankin. It was so wonderful to hear from you. And listeners, if you haven't reached out to the show, I would love to hear from you too. As always, remember that your story matters. As you work on it, you free yourself of false beliefs, painful experiences, and the stories that have kept you small. You might never know how that will ripple out into the world, but I promise you this. As you free yourself, you free others as well. Peace, love, and blessings to you, my friends. Until next week. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I couldn't do this podcast without your support. If you love this episode, here are 3 simple ways that you can keep this show thriving. 1, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. 2, leave a 5-star review so others can find the show. 3, join my engaged dynamic community by signing up for the Writing Your Resilience newsletter. As a thank you, you'll receive a free copy of Ditch Your Inner Critic, 5 tools to transform self-doubt into self-support. Until next time, remember that your story matters. As you write and connect with the truest, most authentic version, you become not just the writer, but the person you're meant to be. And that, my friends, is the real freedom writing can offer.